Studies from Stanford show that athletes who truly believe they're faster, stronger, and more skilled actually perform better in games. And the crazy part is, nothing actually has to change. And I know it sounds like I'm making this stuff up, but this is based on something scientists call self-efficacy. This means when your brain fully believes it can do something, it actually rewires itself to make it happen. And it actually strengthens the neural pathways that control things like reaction time, perception speed, and the ability to take risks and make effective decisions, which actually enables you to attack opportunities instead of hesitating and avoiding them. And not only that, it also builds mental resilience, the brain's ability to not let mistakes shake you. This is why you'll see players with very similar skill sets having completely different hockey careers. One believes in their ability and plays fearless, the other doubts themselves and plays small and avoids the play. Your biggest weakness might not be your skating or your shot, it might actually be how you see yourself as a player. And in this video, I'm going to teach you the 3 ways to rewire your brain so you can unlock world-class confidence, which is going to give you the self-belief to start dominating in games the way you do in practices and skill sessions. By the end of this video, you'll know how deep consistent confidence is really built, why so many players are so inconsistent with their confidence and they show up doubting themselves so consistently, and you'll learn proven techniques so you can rewire your brain to start playing free, fearless, and consistent. And by the way, if you don't know me and you're wondering why you should actually listen to me, I played hockey for over 20 years up to the NCAA level, so I've definitely felt what it's like when confidence works for you in hockey and when it doesn't. And I've coached hundreds of players all the way from minor hockey to the AHL, NCAA Division I, and top-end junior leagues. And the main thing I do is help them master their mental game, their confidence, and their self-belief so they can start unlocking their hockey IQ, their physical abilities, and all the skills that they train their whole life to have, but they're not able to access it consistently because their mind is getting in the way. And by the way, if you're a player or a parent and you want to learn about how to actually build a custom system that I've used with hundreds of players, again, all the way from the AHL all the way down to minor hockey, there's a link below to actually learn the process and you can apply to work with us. There's also a link below where you can get the free training that'll walk you through the foundations of our system and how to actually start developing world-class confidence. Okay, so let's get into the 3 fastest ways to rewire your beliefs and your confidence. Number 1, understand your identity. Your identity is who you believe you are at a subconscious level. And so one of the biggest mistakes that players make when they hear this term identity is they think, ooh, it's who I say I am. It's I say I'm a goal scorer. I say I'm an offensive player. I say I'm a top player in the league. But your identity is who you truly believe on an instinctual level. It's what you actually would say if you didn't have time to think about it at all. What is the automatic belief you have? The most common thing I see is that tons of players will say, I'm a goal scorer. But deep down, when the opportunity actually comes to shoot the puck and they really could create offense, they don't actually believe in themselves. They hesitate. Maybe they make a play, but there's not that full flowing instinctual trust. It's more of this kind of like, ooh, I just kind of fling the puck at the net, hope for the best. And so the biggest thing to understand with identity is you can't just trick yourself by shouting affirmations in the mirror a few times and say, ooh, okay, if I say I am this, then I'll just become that instantaneously or in a couple weeks or even months. And the core problem players have is if you haven't actually lived an experience, it's very hard to believe you can do it. So if you've never been a clutch player in overtime, it's hard to believe you're going to be a clutch player in overtime. If you've never scored in a shootout, it's hard to believe you're going to score in a shootout. If you've never been a great defensive defenseman and you get asked to play that, it's going to be hard to believe it if you've never done it. But here's the number 1 hack you can use to actually break through this. The goal is to do the closest thing you possibly can to the real physical event. So essentially what you want to do is reverse engineer whatever the situation is you want to be confident in. If I can't do it in a game, what's the closest thing I can do? You can say, well, have I scored in a scrimmage before in overtime? If not, you can work your way one step back. Have I scored in maybe a drill before where there was a, maybe like a team setting? And then you can start to say, well, did I score on maybe like a 1-on-1 drill, a 2-on-1 drill, a 3-on-1 drill? You can start to break it down until you eventually realize, okay, there have been times where I have produced, I have had good practices where I've shot the puck well. You will find evidence of that. Maybe you've even just shot a whole bunch of pucks in the driveway. Okay, cool. Well, that's a little bit more confidence. And so something that I learned from hockey pro training, I believe his name is Matt Corthius, I really liked this concept that he shared, which was you basically build a confidence memory bank. And if you think of everything you do as basically kind of building an account and stacking kind of investments into that confidence memory bank, then every action you take becomes a thing you do with intention to actually build that belief when the moment comes. And the cool thing about this is you can even break it down into pieces. You can say, okay, well, if I can't go and score a bunch of goals in a game to build the belief, because that's the hard part, is having confidence helps you do that. So you can break down, let's say, scoring into different subcomponents, and you can really dial in each component. You can practice setting intentions to do those more in practice. And what you'll find is that if you practice the skills, you master the mechanics, you master the IQ and decision-making component of it and the physical ability required, and you master, let's say, for example, shooting mechanics first. Then you practice shooting under pressure and having somebody come close to you and put pressure on you, and you still learn to shoot maybe through traffic. And then you practice actually scoring off of different little mini reactive plays. Like you say, okay, we're going to have 1 or 2 guys just attack me here, and then I'm going to practice making a move and shooting and being kind of reactive or maybe deceptive and influencing. Essentially, you can master the pieces individually and then kind of stack them together. Hack number 2 is using mental simulation. And the mistake players make here is that so many players think that when they say visualization or simulating plays in your head, they think, okay, so on game day, I'm going to do 5-10 minutes of mental reps and that'll get me in the right place. But the problem is that you can't master your shot right before a game. You master your shot through weeks and weeks and months of practice. And then when you get to the game, you've already built the skill set. It's been wired into your brain and it becomes automatic. That's the thing with visualization, is that you need to use it as a consistent part of your daily training. Every day you should be practicing the player you want to be on the ice. The crazy thing is there's been countless studies that have shown that if players get really good at vividly visualizing something, they can actually train their body to respond as if they physically did something. So they've done this with practicing basketball shots and they've shown that players have improved. They've done this with different shooting techniques with guns and actually shown that their accuracy improved. They've done this with physical strength stuff where they've actually had athletes who are already strong do a routine where they actually visualize, that's it, just visualize doing a different strength session, and they did it for multiple weeks, and they actually got very close to what the physical group did. So they didn't do any physical work, they just imagined doing it and it worked. And they used this basically tape, where it was an audio tape where they would run through the tape, imagine doing the exercises, and their muscles and their nervous system improved, like the strength got better. That's crazy. And so what you have to realize is that what you simulate in your mind will start to manifest out in the world, and not that weird like, ooh, law of attraction. No, your skill set will become whatever you visualize all the time. And if you look at what the best athletes have done, I remember seeing Jerry Rice used to do this as a receiver. He would see himself constantly catching these balls in different areas, and he would see himself every day over and over and over again. Look at Connor Bedard, look at Sidney Crosby. What did they do? They were constantly imagining being in games, shooting the puck and scoring. They were seeing themselves dangle around people. It's this constant mental simulation that really wires your brain to get better at something, because you go do it physically and then you simulate it in your mind. And then you can do things like Kobe Bryant used to do for basketball, where he would basically simulate entire game scenarios over and over in basketball in his head, because when he was younger and he actually moved to Italy, he didn't have as many players to play with all the time. So he would go and kind of practice on his own, and he would do these simulations. He would create the scene in his mind and play the whole scene out and execute it. Again, this goes off the principle of doing things that are the closest you possibly can to the real event. If you can't do something physically, then you should think, well, mentally, can I simulate it? Can I run through it over and over again? The best thing you can do is, if you have scored before, you have done whatever the thing is you want to do, then practice that in your mind, because you have an accurate representation of what that feels like to do. So deepen that groove, do it over and over again, and you will notice that your brain gets better at being able to actually make that play happen in games. All you're really doing is, it's called myelination. If you've ever read the book Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, he talks about this, that so many of the best athletes, if you really look at what happened, is a lot of the success seems to come from just endless repetitions of these quality movements and patterns, and practicing these different plays and doing different reactive games and situations. Now, it's not the only thing, obviously, but it seems to be a very strong correlate, which obviously makes sense. But I think for so many players, we get in our head that if we want to become confident, okay, so the key is I need to like learn these magical words to say to myself. And there is something to self-coaching. Yes, you can get better at coaching yourself, but the best thing I would recommend is to actually dig into, how am I physically doing things? How often am I getting the closest thing I can to actually doing it? Am I simulating the plays? Am I breaking it down into pieces and mastering the pieces? And then am I simulating it in my mind every single day over and over and over again? That will make a huge difference. Now, the second big bucket here is building a system you can trust. Ultimately, I like to say that a system plus trust equals confidence. And I say this because confidence isn't hoping. It's about being able to trust your system. It's about being able to trust both your preparation system, and it's being able to trust your actual physical body, like your nervous system, your cardiovascular system. All of those things come together to be able to actually play. The problem players have is they don't trust their systems, and that's an issue. But the only way you can trust your systems is to know you've actually developed a system that's worthy of trust, right? It's hard to get into flow state if you haven't actually developed the skills and the ability where you deserve to get into flow state. If you're not good at something, that's the problem, right? And so sometimes we look at these things and we're like, ooh, how do I get into flow? How do I get into flow? Flow state comes from being good enough at something and finding the right amount of challenge where your brain just kind of slides into this groove of feeling comfortable, feeling in the moment, because you fully embrace what's happening. Why does that happen? Because you trust yourself to do it. You can't trust yourself if you say, I don't know, I just kind of trained pretty hard. I went to team practices. I did our lifts. Yeah, if you're a minor hockey player, junior hockey player, player, that's normal. You're not special for being able to do that. The key is being able to actually have a system that gets you ahead of people. The best example of this I've ever heard is when you look at a 100-meter race in the Olympics, everybody on that line has the same goal. Having goals is not special. It's the system you've built. It's the preparation system and it's the physical system you have in that moment. That's all that matters. Everybody wants to win. Systems are the thing that actually gets them there, not goals. And so that's why every player that we work with, we give them a training tracker for both their mental game and their physical game. And what this really does is help them to organize what reps they do, what specific intentions and quality they have with those things, and helps them decide, what do I want to mentally program into my mind so that when I show up to practice, I've already done a whole bunch of mental reps, I'm more prepared than anybody else, I get more out of my training, I get into flow faster, and everything just clicks. And so that's the key, is preparation. So having a system that you can trust in preparation leads to being able to trust yourself, which leads to that confidence. And that confidence is what's going to allow you to take the risks, make the plays you know you can make, trust yourself fully, and that's when you're going to be able to produce and become the player you want to be. And then the final bucket, the third bucket, is something we call persist with belief. So even before results show up, you have to have a rock solid belief that this is going to happen, and then you have to be able to maintain belief while things are still not going the way you want to. Essentially, confidence means believing in your future identity before it shows up in reality. You have to believe you can be the player you want to be before you become that player. And so that's why we push this idea so much with all of our athletes. Persistence is the key to everything you want. So let's say you want to bench 225 pounds or 2 plates on the bar in the gym. For months, you're not going to be able to do that for most people. But the key to being able to actually get there is being able to persist while you're not there, while you can't physically lift it. You tried, you failed. And when you do finally break through, you look back at all the times where you missed and failed and realize, okay, those were all the steps where I had to be persistent. I had to have this belief of where I was going. And then when you finally get there, you realize, wow, this wasn't just a bunch of hard work. It was actually a mentality that got me to keep sticking with doing these things that were difficult, that weren't comfortable. But that's what got me results that other people don't get, is I did things that other people won't do. And so the reality is, if you take this advice that I've said in the first 2 steps and you start doing it, what most people are going to do, like 99% of the players who watch this, they're going to take this and then they're going to have times where they get injured. They're going to have times where they go into a slump. They're going to have a bad game, bad weeks, bad seasons. And they're going to have doubt from others like coaches, teammates, even parents, scouts. Everybody's not going to believe in you. Things aren't going to work out every time. And I'm not trying to sound negative. I'm just being honest that everything's not going to be perfect. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. But the key is, can you stay stable with your actions through the ups and the downs? This is where having ultra high confidence, deep, consistent confidence really comes in. You have to believe in something that other people don't believe. You have to act as if what you want to have happen is inevitable. And the key is, it's even when you're not seeing the progress. Essentially, what you have to do is sign a contract with yourself and say, I will put the inputs in, I will do the things necessary, even if I don't get the results for a very long time. And that requires being mentally flexible. You have to accept mistakes, accept failures, and accept setbacks as part of growth. Confidence isn't about perfection. It's about being persistent through imperfection. And I want to be clear, I struggled with this as a player so much. There were so many times where when I went through the dips, I would stop taking the actions I needed to take. I would maybe party more than I really ever did, because when I was younger, I hated the idea of partying, but I would start to do that. I would start to slack off. I would take breaks. I wouldn't really push myself because I wouldn't have that dopamine firing. I wouldn't be excited anymore to train because things weren't working. I didn't have that persistence at all times. And I was somebody who prided themselves on being mentally tough. It's hard to be mentally tough when things aren't working. That's why you need a mental team around you who can push you. That's why we have the programs we have, because if you want to be a great player, you're going to have times where you doubt yourself, where everyone else doubts you, and you're going to have people around you who can push you. That's what this is about. It's having that support when you need it. So ultimately, to summarize what I was saying, the first thing you need to do, step 1, is know what your identity is and reprogram your identity on a subconscious level. That's something we do in all our programs, is help you do that on a subconscious level, not just say positive stuff. Step 2 is have a system that you can trust that prepares you, and then you can actually trust your system when you play and get into flow. And then the third step is having consistent persistence, which is massive. And so here's the truth. Confidence isn't something you just magically feel. It's something you build. And if you put these steps into action, you are going to be somebody who's consistently showing up with more confidence than anybody else on the ice. But you have to give yourself time. Give yourself 6 months, a year, maybe even 2 years of sticking with these principles, and they will work. But you have to be willing to believe in yourself when the evidence isn't there yet. Now, if you want to build a personalized system and get personalized support from me and my team, who we've helped hundreds of players all the way from, again, AHL all the way down D1, high-level junior, high-level minor hockey, to help them become the most confident versions of themselves, handle the challenges that come with being a high-level player, then you can check out the link below. Again, there is one where you can watch a video to actually learn learn about what we do, you can check that out. And if you want to apply, we'll let you know. We only work with about 50% of players who apply. It's actually probably lower than that, but about 50% of players we even jump on a call with in the first place just to talk about it. And then we also have several hours of free training that you can check out below with worksheets, guided meditations, visualizations, and everything you need to get started with mental training today. I appreciate you taking the time to watch the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.